think there's something kind of helpful in maybe thinking a bit more broadly and a bit more open-mindedly about what evidence and intelligence is as well. I think there's been a justifiable focus on demonstrating ROI of learning, and I think that will never go away. But I think sometimes that perhaps that prevents us from thinking a bit more broadly about what useful evidence can look and feel like. So your example of your contact in the consulting business of having those partner relationships, that's evidence gathering. It may be conversational, it might be anecdotal, but that's very, very helpful intelligence about the landscape, the environment, and clearly is all about prioritization. But I think there's also something interesting about how we then reflect that evidence back into the organization. So, you sort of the example of, using tools on a small scale, finding a team to work with, and then that becomes a success story that you can then build on. Again, that's gathering evidence and reflecting it back. I think sometimes we get stuck on that sort of calculated quantitative ROI conversation, which again, clearly fundamental, not to be rejected, but to be added to and supplemented with other forms of evidence and other ways of talking about the evidence. I think it's quite important as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think the openness to experiment. One of not supposed to say I have favourite clients, but I have someone that I've worked with across 2 organisations now, and works for the large FCMG brand, and his whole mindset is about experimentation. Yes, he wants to prove things, but actually it's not failure if we experiment something and we can make a slight change, even if it is a 5% increase to someone's productivity or an awareness about something. As long as we're continuously learning about what they are trying to test, it works. And the ROI is there in expanding one's knowledge. And I think that to me is a magical mindset, the epitome of growth mindset. And that person is the kind of skills leader with growth mindset within that organization. But you're right, there is always that focus. I think as an organization we focus, or as an industry, we focus on ROI, but my team's role is to speak to a customer and ask them what are they trying to achieve, and trying to pin numbers on that can be very, very hard. And that covers the maturity level. Some smaller organizations or less mature organizations will come in with metrics and say, we want 100 people in the system, we want to make sure everyone's in there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But obviously, like you say, with the reorganization of our profession or our kind of sector, being able to go to the CFO and go, this is what I am doing. That's the age-old discussion at the moment with many of our customers is, the finance director is under a lot of pressure here. I don't want my team to have any unnecessarily cuts here. So how do I validate everything we're doing? Is that kind of increased? One organization we're working with has done a fantastic study where they have managed to look at the length of content and the completion rates of compliance modules. So if they can save minutes across thousands of people, then there is a real cost to the business of being able to say Myles and Rob are both compliant in 8 minutes rather than 16. And what cost is that back to the business? And it's required us to investigate. And the results that they've achieved have been kind of incredible. They've reduced the time of people to become compliant and not seen a drop off in people's activities. I think it's between 30 and 40%. So that to me, the ROI is, yes, it's a cost cut in ROI, but it's also about efficiency and productivity. And I do feel like sometimes I don't read enough about people talking about the productivity gains of what we do. Productivity is impossible. And the irony of 2 Brits here talking about productivity, one of the least productive countries in the world, if you read any kind of reports. But the productivity gains that our industry is able to provide by upskilling and reskilling, and then the effect that comes from that is something that I would love more people, if anyone listens to this and has a case study, to be able to send over to me, because I'd love to read them.